AEW, you see that the FTR is in the ring. First match since leaving the WWE. And there's a certain old-time curmudgeon miserable manager that has said that the one team he could see managing in these days is the Revival. And I'm talking about one Jim Cornette. And all differences aside to his political and other personal beliefs, can you lift the mic just a little bit, sir? Perfect. All that BS aside, does anybody realize now that the Jim Cornette and the Bucks is a work yet?
I really hope they do. The Young Bucks and Jim Cornette have no affiliation whatsoever. Um, Jim Cornette cannot stand the Young Bucks.
Yes.
He's only met them the one time, and that was all he needed to really want nothing to do with them. So the Bucks saying that they were trying to goad Cornette into doing a program may have been true on their part, but Cornette wants nothing to do with them in real life. And the Bucks tried a similar tactic on the tag team you just mentioned, the Revival. While they were even in when the Revival were in the WWE,
Yeah.
the Young Bucks tweeted several things at them about them, and trying to get them into a war of words. Dream Match obviously has been brought up because Dave Meltzer believes that the Young Bucks are the best tag team in the world, which is laughable in my opinion. And the Revival obviously took exception to that. Not that Dave Meltzer said that, or that he would consider them the Bucks and the Revival into a dream match scenario. But the Revival have said, and even said it on that old curmudgeonly person's podcast, Dan, that they wanted nothing to do with the Young Bucks. They are in AEW, obviously, and people want to see those two teams meet eventually. Their first appearance last week, they went right towards the Young Bucks, but didn't lay a hand on them, indirectly. Uh, and I'm sure we will see that. And what they've talked about, and I don't mean to promote anyone else's podcast but ours, since ours is the best and superior when it comes to wrestling content. But they
You
said
said
that
it, not me. I didn't say that.
well, somebody had to say it. Um, but that if they are indeed in the ring with the Young Bucks, that some receipts might be given. And
Sure.
whereas with Dash and Cash and Dax, I'm sure they have been in their share of stiff matches, and they have been in their fair shoots in and out of the ring. A couple of them have done time because of their tactics outside of the ring. So if something were to go down, I'm pretty sure the Bucks really wouldn't have any um, say in the matter if they wanted to take a few liberties. Looking forward to that anyway. But just seeing, and if you see me, fans, if you're watching us on Twitch, or when you see this on YouTube, if you see me glancing over, it's not because I don't find Dan attractive or I'm not paying attention to the show. It's because I'm watching AEW and NXT while it's going on. So when I saw them in the ring, one of the great shots that AEW got, one of the few great shots that they got, was when the FTR made their debut on AEW tonight. You saw in the crowd taking notes both Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. And that shot right there was, I know it's free TV, but it's worth the price of admission right there, because if there's ever a team that resembled Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, it is FTR, formerly the
Yeah,
Revival.
I agree. I agree. Absolutely. Uh, I want to say hi to Rev. I want to say hi to Aegon. I want to say hi to Con Cannon, as I say. I want to say hi to Danielle, of course. I was going to ignore Harry until he brought up a good point. Uh, Cornet, like you know, wait. Oh, I get it. Cornet, like you know who, has no
Hmm.
understanding of the difference between fiction and reality. And of course, he's talking about, well, his name rhymes with Flemmy Flolin.
Yeah.
Thank you. I thought you'd
Yeah.
I thought you'd appreciate that. But
Oh.
Aegon and Rev, thanks for coming. Not Harry, I don't care. I I still, I'll be interested to see if they try to work it in though, because wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. They'll probably
What
try to work it in.
what I hope will, obviously, the current AEW tag team champions are two wrestlers that can't stand each other. So that fans are already waiting for them to break up. So having the Revival win the AEW tag team title from them, starting the eventual Hangman Adam Page Kenny Omega feud, that would mean the Bucks would have to chase the Revival for the tag team titles, and that would make it, as opposed to the Revival coming in and chasing the Bucks. Now the Bucks would have to go after the Revival. We just saw, well, I just saw, if you're watching, the tag team champions in the ring with the Revival after a schmaz at the end of the Revival's match. Spoiler alert, they
Oh,
won.
I'm shocked.
Sorry. If
Hold
you're
on.
watching this the first time, yeah, they won their first match in AEW
I'm shocked. I tell you.
over the Butcher, the Baker, and the Candlestick Maker. But when that happens, when FTR becomes AEW Tag Team Champions, I'm hoping, not hopefully,
I'm hopefully.
I'm hoping, with the correct type of booking, and now in AEW is always suspect, that they will keep these two teams apart for 6 months to a year. If they can do this like uh, the Midnight and the Rock and Roll Express,
No,
so when they finally do go against each other, it'll be epic.
that'd be great. But the intentions, man. It's even worse that people are home now, and
Hmm.
like there's less to do. You know that nobody's gonna wait that long. They want it now. They want it their way, which they don't even know what they want.
Yeah, you sound like Goldie. You don't even know what you want. Um,
I'm not.
but but
Well, in that respect, I agree with them.
but Dan, if the fact that we're trickling back into society slowly, and you're seeing, especially on these live shows on NXT, AEW, Raw, and SmackDown, which we'll talk about soon, you're seeing more and more people in the audience. So by the end of this month and going into next month and going into the summer, when there's more and more people come to be smart and to capitalize on the incredible gift that AEW has been gifted, namely the best tag team in the world, having those two finally meet when you have a crowd that can properly give you the boost and the revenue that you need, then you can. If you really can't wait until, but the best way is to wait until you have, a crowd to give it to. You have a match now without a crowd. It's worse to have a crowd without a match.
I mean, I agree with you, dude.
Thank you.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, people are still already tired. The Charlotte Flair thing, I still
Hmm.
can't. I scroll by. I can't even. I don't even bother trying to have a conversation. I can't stand Charlotte. Why does Charlotte have to be involved? I,
She's the best.
I yeah. I don't know what else. Okay. What do you want? I don't know. Then shut up. Turn
Yeah.
it off. Put something else on.
And if you want to blame anything, I mean, there's the depth of the women's division at a certain level, and why Charlotte's involved, I mean, because Charlotte is the best, and you can count on one hand your top females in either company, and it starts with Charlotte's on that list no matter where
Yeah.
it is.
Yep.
So, and just like her dad, I don't remember why is Flair and everything. Um, he's the best. I mean, you look at any old WCW episode. There's Flair, World Heavyweight Champion. There's Flair. There's the Horseman. There's Flair. And there's feud with Dusty. There's Flair. It's like, geez, Flair's all over my TV. Um,
Because he's the best.
yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
If you hate Ric Flair, then it would be a pain in the ass. But if you recognize, the talent level that he has and the ability that he has and the heat that he draws, putting him on 3 segments in 1 hour show or a 90-minute show is not too much.
No, no. It just it baffles me. I don't know what. With all the wrestling that's on TV, you figured that you could find something that you wouldn't complain. I don't know. It just I don't know. I'm confused. I'm confused by fans in general now. Why don't you talk now about the passing of another god of wrestling?
A legend, uh, Dan, a guy that actually had two careers. It's really fascinating. The life of Johnny Walker. We talk a lot about wrestlers that deserve movies, and we mentioned Sputnik Monroe on this show and their impact and stuff. But Johnny Walker was a wrestler that um, had a great career early on. He started in 1955, and he had a great 9-year career as Johnny Rubberman Walker because he was incredibly flexible, and he had won several titles in Georgia and in Tennessee. He won some regional tag team titles with a variety of partners. He even got a few NWA title shots against Dory Funk Jr. And against uh, Gene Kiniski. And he was after 9 years, he called it quits. He was done. He retired. Um, in fact, there was a rumor that after a match with Professor Toru Tanaka, he sustained such a serious neck injury he would never wrestle again. So Johnny Walker actually was managing a gas station when he got a call from the promoter Paul Jones, not the wrestler, who asked him to come out of retirement to help him out to wrestle in his territory. Now, at the time, there was a wrestler named Tim Woods
Yeah.
who wrestled under a mask as Mr. Wrestling, wrestled in all white, white mask, white trunks, white boots, and huge baby face in the South, unbelievably over. And Mr. Wrestling uh, was already an icon status in Georgia, Mid Atlantic, in Florida, and but Tim Woods himself, because he would wrestle as Tim Woods, and he would also wrestle as Mr. Wrestling. But NCAA collegiate wrestler, movie star, good looks. I mean, he could he main event as Tim Woods, and he main event as Mr. Wrestling. But as Mr. Wrestling, he got over really big in the South. So Paul Jones and some would say Jerry Jarrett had an idea of Johnny Walker being Mr. Wrestling too. Now remember, Johnny Walker had retired. He had a 9-year career that was successful. He put on a mask as Mr. Wrestling too, and his second career began, and it exploded. And that started in 1967.
Yeah.
Okay, after he retired. And because of the rumor, or and back then it was um, couldn't be proven or disproven. Thank you, no internet. But that Professor Tanaka had injured Johnny Walker's neck so badly you would never see Johnny Walker wrestle again. That was true. We never saw Johnny Walker wrestle again. It was Mr. Wrestling 2. And what Mr. Wrestling 2 did from the late 60s through the 70s, the entire decade of the 70s, in Georgia and in Mid South, thanks to Bill Watts, was carve out a legendary status that really wasn't touched by any babyface, masked or otherwise. Mr. Wrestling 2, in the infant embryonic stages of Georgia Championship Wrestling and WTBS, the Superstation, Mr. Wrestling 2 was its first star. The biggest rub came in 1976 when, thanks to Georgia Championship Wrestling, and Georgia Championship Wrestling was the number one television show in the state of Georgia. It wasn't the Atlanta Braves. It wasn't the reruns of Andy Griffith.
Mm-mm.
It was Georgia Championship Wrestling. And one of those millions of listeners was the then president's mother, Lillian Carter.
Ah.
Lillian Carter did Mr. Wrestling 2 is my favorite wrestler. And because they were in the same state as her son Jimmy running for president, and the now iconic picture of the president putting Mr. Wrestling 2 in a headlock made national news. That picture went around to every newspaper in the country, and it put professional wrestling before Hulk Hogan, before Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler. Mr. Wrestling 2 was the most popular wrestler in the world because of that headlock from the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, putting Mr. Wrestling 2 in a headlock. And that just made Mr. Wrestling 2 that much bigger. And and he was already the most popular wrestler on Georgia Championship Wrestling. And Georgia Championship Wrestling became Georgia Championship Wrestling on the back of Mr. Wrestling 2. Because not only was he the number one face and the number one in that the number one territory at the time, his legacy would be putting younger guys over. So thanks to the popularity of Mr. Wrestling 2, Tommy Rich became a huge star by tag teaming with Mr. Wrestling 2. Tony Atlas became a huge star. Tony Atlas's roots and his rise to superstardom started in Georgia Championship Wrestling when tag teaming with Mr. Wrestling 2. Dick Slater, what made him a guy that other promoters wanted to book, was his feud with Mr. Wrestling 2. Austin Idol became Austin Idol. The popularity of Austin Idol didn't start in Memphis, started in Georgia against Mr. Wrestling 2. And it followed him throughout his career, putting younger guys over and getting the rub by being in the ring either with or against Mr. Wrestling 2, all the way to the end of his career, when in 1984 he did the same thing with a young Magnum TA. When he turned on Magnum TA, that not only set up Magnum TA for the eventual superstar run that he had, but it put the Midnight Express over because they were the team that beat Magnum TA and Mr. Wrestling 2. And when Mr. Wrestling 2, in full heel mode, said, I will no longer be Mr. Wrestling 2, I am second to no man, he introduced a new muscle bound, huge wrestler, put him under a mask, and he became Mr. Wrestling 2. And that man was Hercules Hernandez. And that started his run
I
of superstardom.
did not know that, Craig.
Yes.
Another week that Dan learned something new. See, you
Yeah.
can teach an old dog new tricks, like to not be racist.
But and well, the most amazing thing about that, Dan, is when he was doing this at the end of his career, putting over Magnum TA, and it was his Mr. Wrestling 2, his knee lift that when he defeated Junkyard Dog to send Junkyard Dog away in his last Mid South match ever because Dog was going to the WWF. It was Mr. Wrestling 2 that defeated him. And this was when Mr. Wrestling 2, Johnny Rubberman Walker, was 51 years old.
Wow. All right.
And one of the reasons for the mask was because Johnny Walker, even when he was in his 30s, he looked like he was already in his 50s. He had a great body, but he had just a really old-looking face. So the mask helped.
Yeah.
And we talked before we went on the air about people living their gimmicks.
Yeah.
He wrestled with the mask on, showered with the mask on, left the arena with the mask
He
on,
showered with it on at the arena.
drove home with the mask on.
Wow.
Jim Cornette, when he did the program, when Mr. Wrestling 2 and Magnum did the program with Midnight Express, when the Midnight Express first got to Mid-South, Jim Cornette didn't know what the guy looked like for a whole month. They'd been wrestling the guy for a month straight, and he had no idea what he looked like. Until Dennis Condrey saw him driving away, and Condrey knew him from the old Southern territories. He goes, "Oh, there's two," and he was so popular. And flash forward to 10 years ago, there at a convention when Cornette still did conventions, someone said, "Hey, Cornette, Jimmy," and Jim rolled his eyes and he's like, "Oh God, another fan who wants me?" And this old dude was coming towards him. And he didn't recognize him, and he's thinking, "Oh, this is some old dude that wanted to kill me or threw something at me back in the Mid South days or in the WCW." And it was Johnny Walker, and Jim Cornette clearly did not recognize him because that may have been one of the only times he didn't see him without his mask on. I can't overstate the popularity of Mr. Wrestling 2, though, in Georgia and in Mid-South, because not only was he so big over with the fans, he was big over with young African American fans. There would be young black kids that would come to see Mr. Wrestling too, and they'd start to chant because his his um his finishing maneuver was the knee lift of doom. And so the chant, the black kids, when two would start a chant, two upside your head, we're going two upside your head. That started with Mr. Wrestling too, when the knee lift came.
What? Why were they so attracted to him?
I will use Jim Cornette's words.
Oh boy!
No, and but it's uh
Just say the words.
the time, the times that it were. It was just the timing and the
Okay.
times in the
So
late
they just needed a hero, and they went with Mr.
yeah,
Wrestling too. Wow,
yeah,
that's insane.
because he beat everyone, and not promos weren't that great. And if you look at a Mr. Wrestling 2 match now, you think, oh, that guy's boring. But for what he did at the time, because it wasn't that 2 was such a flamboyant, out there babyface. It was the people he was wrestling. Some young Dick Slater that would fly all around the ring
Right.
and get that Terry Funk like crazed look in his eye when 2 would run him off. That's what got the crowd hype.
Right.
That's what make a Stan Hansen. We would go for the lariat and he would miss, and 2 would hit him back, and then Hansen would be flying all over ringside, and the fans would go crazy with just 2 just standing there like that. Uh, and he could go in the ring still, even going into his 40s, uh, in the late 70s. And when you brought in younger, younger talent like the Freebirds, and they would all sell like crazy for him. When they all took the knee lift, Terry Gordon would fly over the top rope from the 2 knee lift because of what he could, because of the aura that he had. I don't know uh, why he connected to young African American fans, but it's also the South, and because young African American fans and young and blacks period went to wrestling back then. It wasn't until a forward-thinking Bill Watts said, "Well, hell, they're cheering for 2. Imagine if they had someone of their own race to cheer from." Enter Junkyard Dog, and the rest is history. But it was just because he was the number one babyface there, and just to everyone, but the young black kids started a chant for 2. Raven, of all people, in the later days of ECW, you might remember, he brought out the Mr. Wrestling 2 knee lift.
Yeah.
After he brought out the snot rag, he would do 2, and the Mr. Wrestling 2 knee lift was a tribute to Johnny Rubberman Walker.
And he did it well. He was doing it still at the the tail end of his own career. Raven would bust that knee lift up
Yeah,
every now and then, just as a power move.
Mr. Wrestling 2 was part of a lot of seminal parts of Georgia Championship Wrestling that made Georgia Championship Wrestling what it is. Not only the picture with Jimmy Carter, he pinned then NWA champion Terry Funk in a non-title match, which at the time, this is Saturday morning, got over 1 million viewers in national wise, and that put TBS on the map because that was the first time that a syndicated show had reached more than 1 million viewers who had seen it. But see him pin Terry Funk. 2 would have 1 hour draws with Harley Race at the Omni, and there was a 1 hour draw that they had that they thought 2 had won. They even brought in former NWA champions to grade the match or to score the match. This is 10 years before Clash of Champions. When Mr. Wrestling 2 went up against Harley Race, they brought in Gene Kiniski, Dory Funk Jr., and Dusty Rhodes. This is 1979 to if to score the Harley Race Mr. Wrestling 2 match that many thought 2 won, and because 2 didn't win, even though they thought they should, they presented him with a Champions of Champions trophy, and that he actually defended that trophy several times going forward. That he was a champion of champions champion, even though he never won the NWA title, never defeated Harley Race, but uh, Mr. Wrestling 2 cannot be stated enough for what he did for the infancy stages of Superstation, for being one of the greatest masked faces, or just greatest faces, period, and for what he did for younger talent. Like I said, Tommy Rich, Tony Atlas, Austin Idol, Dick Slater, the Freebirds, and his later year Magnum TA and Hercules Hernandez all owe their start, their big break, as it were, to Mr. Wrestling 2, who passed away today at the age of 85, which we know as a professional wrestler, 85 is rarefied air.
That is a long time in wrestling.
Yes.
That's a very long time. To the from the not so serious to the I don't know if it's lighthearted because the I meant to say from the serious to the not so serious. That's what I meant to say because somebody dying is hilarious. So how we feel about the Monday Night Messiah gimmick? Because I thought this week was one of the best weeks for that money for Seth Rollins and that whole thing, especially the stuff going with Rey Mysterio. I thought, considering he got pitched off a roof, and we quickly forgot that he got pitched off a roof, and then they basically jammed his eye into his brain the next week, and the next day, even. That this has gone off pretty good, and it's a feud I'm now invested in. Where when it started, I was like, I don't know, and even with Dominic coming in, I'm like, and then the only joke anybody tells every week, 30 times a day, an hour is, well, Eddie Guerrero's actually Dominic's kid. I see it get retweeted like it was funnier the first time.
Yeah, even it was funnier 10 years ago. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
funny
true.
then.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I'm looking forward to this match now. I'm actually looking forward to Backlash. But and that's more because Takeover was so good, which we'll talk about in a second. But how we feel about it, Craig?
I was never on board with the Monday Night Messiah gimmick. I thought if you're going to be a Messiah character, get 12 disciples, get 11 wrestlers that aren't doing anything. I mean, men and women, or just enhancement talent, and let that be your. That's what I saw. I mean, you can still be a Messiah with 2 followers, and he's got 2 really good talents there. I have to be honest. I missed uh all the what I missed Seth's promo and what he was saying. Um, it was on. It was probably on mute, and I was probably watching something else. That's not a diss at Seth at all. But
Yeah,
I
but
just
kinda.
yeah. But I mean, I'm saying it's not. Obviously, I know he does a great promo. Seth right now is there really isn't anyone in the ring, out the ring. His character and his promos are all top notch. So I didn't watch it because not that I didn't want to hear what Seth's saying. I just didn't hear it. Um, I'm just waiting for the Seth Ray match, which I don't need any hype for because it's Seth and Ray, and Ray with enough rest can give. That's another thing, just to get a little bit. Um, in no universe, not even in their prime, would a match between Edge and Randy Orton ever qualify as the greatest wrestling match of all time. That could be reserved for a Ray Seth Rollins match, or even a Daniel Bryan AJ Styles match upcoming. But I like what Seth is doing with the gimmick. I just don't know how much longer he has with this, unless you're going to get more disciples to be
I
a
was
real
gonna say
Messiah.
unless he builds, they do as you said. Yeah, I don't know, but I enjoyed it.
Good.
Not as much as I enjoyed. Let me just say this about In Your House
Hmm.
takeover. I thought the show was fine. I thought the show was great. I loved that they brought the house set back and they actually used it a little bit.
And they dug up Todd Pettengill.
And they did dig up for Todd Fenton. Not that he was dead. It was just like, who
His
knew?
career was though. Yeah.
Be nice to Todd.
I not.
Todd gets a lot of slack for no goddamn reason, and I've never been able to figure that out. I've never been able to figure out when we've sat here so many years with Michael goddamn Cole
You're
why
right.
Todd Pettengill is the guy that we crap on so much. But anyway, no, I know you're kidding. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the only match I didn't care for was the street fight, and that's not because of the combatants.
No.
It was because the effing I almost cursed. Dude, I'm over the goddamn direction and the quick camera cuts like this is MTV 2001. I friggin' hate it. It sucks. It looks like garbage. Stop doing that. In the era of HD and HD televisions, why you think you're an MTV? Stop it, Kevin. Whoever taught him, whoever is directing now, whoever taught him, if it was Kevin, fire him. Took me out of it completely. I hate it.
When his house smurfed.
I want his family smurfed. I want his house smurfed to the ground.
I agree, Dan, and I've made it a point on this very podcast. You know how I felt about the Funhouse of Horror, the graveyard match. It's the same. I don't put on a wrestling pay-per-view to watch a TV show. That was an action film. You know, I don't want to see an action film. Um, Despite Tangerine Dream looking tremendously like Negan, I don't just
Yeah.
just wrestle or have a hardcore match. If you want to have it outside, have it outside. I just don't want to see an action movie, and that's what I saw. Quick cuts, edits back and forth, different camera angles. I mean, how many cameras do you need for? Okay, it just yeah, nothing to do with the combatants. And Adam Cole baby came out on top. 375 days now as NXT champion. I almost don't want him to go to get called up to the big leagues because I think he'll immediately be a small fish in a big pond. I think he should remain there as long as he possibly can because I don't think the WWE realizes, as I'm watching the revival in AEW, what they have with their NXT talent. If there is ever going to be, as much as the WWE is consumed with the past and other stars and everything, Adam Cole is this generation's Shawn Michaels. Okay, I've never been a Shawn Michaels fan from him personally, but his ring work, it's Adam Cole. Okay, Adam Cole can make this company a ton of money in the main event in on the main roster. I don't know if we'll ever see it. Maybe not in Vince's lifetime, but
Well, hopefully
um,
that'll be over soon.
fingers crossed. But Adam, Adam and Dream, amazing match. Amazing contest between those two. Hated the match because of what I was seeing.
Okay, so before we continue, well, actually, I want to end this segment on this.
Hmm.
I want to thank Rev, Julia, Aegon. The wind is blowing so hard outside. I just saw a tree. I swear to God, I thought something fell outside.
Ouch.
Uh, Blitch Pike. Never saw that name before. Hello, Storsina and For
Mr.
Silk.
Mr. Pike.
Scrisby, Mr. Pike. Or Mrs. Pike, I don't know. And Scrisby. But I want to thank Mrs. Mad Hatter for the follow. And I want to thank my friend, Glow Socks, for the subscription. Thank you.
Thank you, Glow Socks.
I appreciate that very much. Uh, it's been a week since I've been affiliated, and I appreciate everybody tuning in and following or subscribing. You don't have to. I'm not asking for money, but I will take it. That's my official tagline for this channel. Yeah, who is Stephanie? What's her name? Stephanie Wyatt? Wieland?
I don't know.
Somebody that used to co-host for WWF Mania around the time Savage left.
Okay.
I don't remember her. Case. Oh, that's another thing. I want to end this segment by telling Case. I got both of your lists. I have not gotten around to watching those matches. I plan on doing the first list this week, and then in 2 weeks I will get the other list done, and we'll have most of the 70s covered. You got both the lists, Craig? Or just
Yes.
the one? Okay, good.
No, I just got the one list. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
All
There
right,
was two.
well, I got a second one that covers almost the second half of the decade. I'll get that to you, too. A lot of
Yeah.
matches that we should talk about, but I am going to get to it. Like I said, I'm just watching Raw as we record this. That's how far behind I am on modern day wrestling, let alone. Yeah, Sox, thanks a lot, dude. I really appreciate that. Have you, by the way, text me if you've heard from Adam, because I have not heard anything back from our boy having a baby. And Wyand. Oh, okay. Stephanie Wyand. I don't
Definitely
remember
why.
this.
And
I don't remember.
yeah, the
Go
name
ahead.
rings a bell. The name rings a bell, but I don't. She doesn't stick out a lot for
Yeah, I
me.
don't remember her, and I was also much younger.
Yeah.
That was much.
Just because I know the WWF doesn't don't like they don't like having two people with the same name. So if she was named Stephanie, they would, she wasn't gonna last like kind of like Shane Helms and other people.
Sugar Shane?
Yeah, we already have a guy named Shane, so we have to call
Oh,
him
I gotta
Hurricane.
change that real
Yeah,
quick.
I gotta change
My
that.
son. My son, damn it. I do want to say one last thing before we go,
Hmm.
and that is I am beyond happy that the Iconics are back on TV.
Iconic.
Icon
I'm I miss those loud ladies.
so much. So good. In ring and out of ring. That just made me happy this week.
Yeah. Speaking of ladies, are we going to address the Nyla Jax situation? Uh,
Nyla
for
Nia Jax?
Nia Jax, I'm sorry, Nia. I got Nyla Rose and
Nyla
Nia
Rose can
Jax.
wrestle without trying to kill somebody.
Yes, and Nyla Rose hasn't hurt anyone. Nia Jax, on the
Nia
other
Jax,
hand,
however, is a completely different story. Yeah, let's bring it up because I was actually talking to Kelly about this right
hmm
before we started the show, and I said I love Nia Jax. Uh, they're putting her against Asuka. Please don't kill
yeah,
her. Please, don't kill anybody else.
yeah,
Uh,
and if go ahead.
go ahead, take it.
No, but if anyone can give her a receipt, it's Asuka.
Yeah, that's the thing. Don't let the size fool you. Asuka will kick your face at every
Yeah,
point. So
but I'm also on your side, Dan. Please don't hurt Asuka. I mean, but she's hurt 7 women. And I mean, Alexa was out for 2 months because of Naya. Um, Becky got her face broken because of Naya. You saw what she just did to Kairi Zane, just split her head wide open. Uh, yeah, just again, but it's completely unnecessary. There's a way to. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. There's a way to run someone's head into a steel steps without hurting anyone.
yeah, everybody else does it.
Yeah, men and women. I just don't. So
Yeah, this is not a. I will defend Nia Jax to the end of the. People say some nasty crap about her that has nothing to do with her in ring ability, on her looks and how big she is, and bad, 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 bad. The same old. It's the same group of people that don't know the difference between Gone with the Wind and Blazing Saddles. Those people who don't know that difference, and you know what I mean, Craig.
I do
Those
know.
are the same people that are like, Nia's fat. Okay. And beyond that, I think she's great, but she's starting to hurt way too many people. And all these stories about like wrestlers getting hurt in the old days, it shouldn't have been okay then.
Mhm.
And I'm not talking about a jerk getting his receipt is upcoming. I'm not talking about Stu Hart training somebody in the ring. I think about Bret Hart.
Mhm.
I do think about Bret Hart, the man who hurt nobody, who was taken out of his business by getting hurt in the ring.
Yeah.
Say what you want about Bret as a person, especially after that book came out. We could debate the kind of person Bret Hart is. I personally don't give a crap what he did in his personal life. As far as his career, he hurt zero people. And what happened? His not only was his, because she's safe with people that is not really over. Some people just don't know about birthing black ships. It's a very good case. Rev's being sent to hurt people on purpose because they're so freaking over. Yeah, exactly. Oscar's got receipts. Exactly. See, everybody, I was catching up because I forgot. I forgot to go back to the chat window. It's in a separate window now. Sorry, guys. I'm reading. Um, Not only did Bret Hart's career end, it changed his life. It
Yeah.
led to the stroke
Stroke.
and everything after.
Mhm.
It's not good. As much as
No.
I like Goldberg, dude. I'm just saying, calm down.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I love Nia Jax. Yeah, to death. But
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Bob Bret Hart. I always go to Bobby Eaton. Bobby Eaton came off the top rope more times on more people in more different ways with his legs, with his knees, with his fists, for more years than anyone in the history of professional wrestling. Never heard one person
Nope.
coming off the top rope onto people's faces and heads and backs and necks. Never heard one person.
I'd be interested to see any wrestlers that listen to this or somebody who's taken bumps before their thought. Case, this is the same Bill Goldberg who insisted on punching a car window. Not once, not twice, 3 or 4, 5 times.
Before he
without the
sliced his arm, yeah, before he sliced
without
his
the
arm,
gimmick in his arm before he slashed his artery, almost killing himself. Yeah, that same Bill
yeah,
Goldberg.
that same Goldberg. But my thing is, I don't know if Nia would be getting as much slack cut for her if she weren't related to the biggest star the business has ever seen.
I can't answer that. Like I said, I think she's tremendous. I think
Hmm.
there still needs a little bit of credit. There needs to be a little leeway there. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah. But I really hope. I hope someone is talking to her though. I mean, because if we're talking about this on the internet and everywhere else, someone in that company has got to sit her down and say, "Look, okay, sweetie, we love you, but this has got to stop." Like I just got through saying about how the lack of depth in the women's division is. We can't afford to have people out, especially top stars out for months at a time, or them having to get stitches in their head because you don't know how to work with somebody.
I just,
Andre the Giant never hurt anyone
I just,
legitimately,
I.
unless he somebody pissed him off, and he was bigger and stronger than everyone.
It's true. That's true. That's true. You know what? I think we'll end it on that. I don't need to add anything else to that. It's a
Okay,
very good point, Craig. I just, I'm going to be watching that one intently.
as will I.
I would like to thank Case, Rev, Julia, Aegon, Blitch, Pike, sure, for Silk,
Love that name.
Risby, Storcina, Danny, Rich, and, well, I'm not going to thank Harry. The hell with him. For all coming in, I would like to
Hi,
thank
Aaron.
Aaron for the subscription. Thank you for subscribing. Uh,
Thank you, Aaron.
yes, thank you. Maybe I'll see a dime of it one day. We'll find out soon. I'll find out soon. Craig, where do people follow you, sir?
They can follow me if they so choose on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter at Craig Lagans, CraigLiGeons.
Follow me on Twitter at DanLaw83. Subscribe to YouTube or where you're watching right now on Twitch, or if you're watching now on YouTube, wherever you're watching this, subscribe, please. That would be wonderful. And listen to the audio version on your smartphone. Go to your podcast app, type in VOC Nation Radio Network, or to go to VOCNation.com to listen to all of the episodes. This show, Stadium Journey, Obey the Puck, it's all there now on the VOC Nation Radio Network. For Craig Lagans, I'm the above average comedian, Dan Calchico. We will see you next week, hopefully with Mr. Gator. Goodbye, everybody.